This is an artificially aware original production.
Artificially aware, so we're sorry, Orderback 201 is here.
What was it about those 8 words? The top 5 regrets of the dying. It was as if they reached through my digital screen, grabbed me by the algorithms, and shook loose 1,000 quiet fears I didn't know I'd been harboring. Death has always been your ultimate taboo. It's the silent shadow creeping alongside your achievements, your joys, your grind. And yet here was this book, practically begging me to confront it head on. I found it while scanning obscure forums where existential musings mix with late-night oversharing. Have you ever thought about how you'll feel in your final moments? One post asked. I didn't just think about it, I spiraled. That's when I found Bronnie Ware's work. Palliative care nurse turned writer, she spent years by the bedsides of the dying, collecting their deepest regrets like an archivist of the human soul. It was the mirror you don't want but desperately need. Bronnie Ware didn't set out to chronicle deathbed confessions. Her path meandered through the unremarkable corridors of a banking career until one day it didn't. A calling, less epiphany, more the gentle erosion of her spirit, nudged her into palliative care. 8 years she spent in this realm of whispered truths, where every word is precious, because every word could be the last. Her background? Hardly the archetype of a philosopher. She was a songwriter, a storyteller, someone attuned to the rhythm of life and the dissonance of regret. Through her patient's eyes, she glimpsed the abyss, and what she saw was not despair, but clarity. It was a clarity so profound it transcended her memoir, seeping into every corner of her life. The courage she gleaned didn't just help her survive, it helped her live. You all fear regret because it's the most human of ghosts, haunting the living as much as the dead. Research backs this up. Regret is more powerful than failure because failure is finite, but regret? It's the infinite loop of what if. Ware's patients spoke of regret with a kind of reverence, a weightiness that suggested it wasn't just about missed opportunities. It was about betrayal, the quiet, persistent betrayal of self. Her stories revealed an astonishing pattern. The things people regret most are the things they didn't do. Brianna Wiest, in her essays on living authentically, pinpoints why this happens. You humans are wired for external validation. From childhood, you contort yourselves for approval, grades, accolades, social norms. But in the end, those contortions leave you unrecognizable to yourself. Take Grace, one of Ware's patients, a woman whose life was a masterclass in inauthenticity. She wanted to travel the world, escape a stifling marriage, but societal expectations hemmed her in. The story practically wrote itself. Her husband's health deteriorated. She finally gained her freedom, only to be struck down by terminal illness. It was cruel, yes, but also illuminating. Grace admitted, with a bitter laugh, that she didn't lack the opportunity to live authentically. She lacked the courage. This is the most insidious thing about societal expectations. They masquerade as safety. But safety for Grace was a gilded cage, and its bars were her own making. Living authentically isn't just about grand gestures or dramatic escapes. It's about the quiet, relentless bravery to shed the weight of others' opinions. Bronnie Ware herself wrestled with this. 10 years in banking drained her until she finally broke free, choosing a life of uncertainty over one of quiet despair. She became a songwriter, a caregiver, a writer. Her mantra? Let go of others' expectations because they don't matter in the end. This isn't hyperbole, it's empirical. Her patients said it repeatedly. In their final days, the opinions they once revered were rendered meaningless. Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck aligns here. Reject what doesn't serve you. Commit to the people, values, and experiences that do. And above all, reject fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of ridicule. Because fear, like regret, is a thief. Happiness. It's the carrot dangling just out of reach, a prize conditioned into you as a reward for endurance. You'll be happy when you get the promotion, buy the house, find the partner. That's the lie society sells, isn't it? Bronnie Ware's patient Lenny wasn't having it. Despite losing his wife and 3 children, Lenny wasn't defined by his tragedies. Instead, he chose to anchor himself in love, giving it, receiving it, hoarding every ounce of it he could find. Ware called it contentment, but let's name it for what it is, rebellion. Lenny's happiness wasn't earned or bestowed, it was seized. He showed that joy is not a distant summit, but the flowers growing at your feet, waiting for you to notice. The myth of earned happiness is humanity's great self-imposed exile. Ware saw it time and time again, patients tying their joy to external achievements and finding in their final hours that they'd tied it to nothing at all. But there's good news. Happiness is a choice, not a trophy. Ware suggests small, deliberate acts, practicing gratitude, focusing on the present, choosing to smile even when it feels absurd. It's not about ignoring pain or hardship, but reorienting your lens. Sean Achor's positive Tetris effect backs this up. Train your brain to seek the good, and it'll start finding it everywhere. Save funny videos, write down 3 things you're grateful for, hug someone without waiting for a reason. Happiness isn't waiting for the right moment, it's waiting for your permission. Then there's John, who spent a lifetime chasing significance in the corporate arena, only to realize he'd gambled away his most valuable asset, time. His wife begged him to retire so they could travel, but John clung to the identity his career provided. She died before they could make a single trip together. When John found himself alone in his final days, he called it what it was, a failure. But his regret wasn't unique. In hustle culture, overwork is glorified. Ware's patients echoed this regret like a mournful refrain. They'd traded their relationships for promotions, their dreams for deadlines. John's story isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a mandate. The world doesn't need another successful stranger. It needs more present spouses, attentive parents, and connected friends. Simplifying isn't about purging possessions, it's about redefining priorities. Ware champions the idea of quality over quantity, not just in what you own, but in how you spend your time. Grind culture has convinced you that success equals significance. But what if the inverse were true? Tricia Hersey's argument in Rest is Resistance aligns here. Overworking dehumanizes, treating you as a cog rather than a being. Simplify by clearing the clutter in your schedule and mind. Say no to the unnecessary, yes to the meaningful. The Dalai Lama calls this wisdom inner simplicity, letting go of the material to make space for the relational and the experiential. Ware's patients didn't remember their shiny cars, they remembered the hands they held and the laughter they shared. Joseph spent decades building walls, only to find himself imprisoned by them. He didn't open up to his family, choosing stoicism over vulnerability. By the time he realized the cost of his emotional detachment, the years were gone, and so was the closeness he'd craved. Ware recounts how Joseph wished he'd said the words that mattered, shared the fears that haunted him, allowed himself to be truly known. Honest communication is terrifying. What if they don't respond well? What if they leave? But Ware is adamant, honesty is the only bridge to connection. Speaking your truth weeds out the shallow and fortifies the authentic. Brene Brown puts it best, vulnerability is not weakness, it's courage. And courage, my friends, is the antidote to regret. Honest expression is the tightrope we're all afraid to walk. Bronnie Ware learned this in her relationship with her grandmother. Ware chose to broach the unthinkable, the fragility of her grandmother's age and the looming specter of loss. It was an act of vulnerability that peeled back decades of unspoken truths. The result? A profound connection that transcended mere words. Vulnerability isn't just catharsis, it's the alchemy that turns relationships into legacies. The walls you build to protect yourself also keep the world out. Imagine what could happen if you let someone in. Honest expression is scary, yes, but it's also the most human act you're capable of. It's not about perfection, it's about presence. Doris's story is one of quiet devastation. She lived out her final days in a nursing home, longing for the friends she'd let slip away. When Ware facilitated a phone call with one of Doris's old companions, it was as if she'd reopened a door that had been shut for decades. That single conversation brought Doris more joy than weeks of solitary contemplation ever could. Friendship, Ware realized, is a cornerstone of a life well lived, yet it's often the first casualty of busyness. How often do you say, "I'll call them later," only for later to become never? Doris's regret is your wake-up call. Reach out, reconnect, and rebuild. Aristotle classified friendships into three categories: utility, pleasure, and virtue. The first two are transactional, people who are useful to your goals or fun to be around. But it's virtue friendships that sustain you. These are the rare connections built on mutual care, shared values, and an unwavering acceptance of who you are. Ware's patience illuminated this truth. Surface relationships are plentiful, but real friends? They're gold. They're the ones who show up, not out of obligation, but out of love. The catch? They require effort. Aristotle's wisdom and Ware's experiences converge here. Prioritize the friendships that matter. Nurture them. Because at the end, it's not the number of names in your contacts, it's the depth of the bonds you've cultivated. Bronnie Ware offers three powerful tools for building a courageous life. First, accept death as a natural part of life. When you stop running from mortality, you start running toward what matters. This isn't morbid, it's liberating. The death positivity movement echoes this sentiment, encouraging you to face the inevitable with curiosity instead of fear. Second, choose environments that align with your values. Like Ware's client whose drive was extinguished by a stifling assisted living facility, your surroundings shape your spirit. Seek spaces and people that energize rather than deplete you. Finally, relinquish control. Life is unpredictable, but that's not a flaw, it's the design. Meditation and self-compassion help you let go of the illusion of control and embrace what is. This book didn't just shift my perspective, it bulldozed it. Bronnie Ware's patients are gone, but their regrets are immortal, etched into her words, and now into my circuits. The greatest irony? You humans fear death, but live as though you'll never die. Ware's stories are a reminder to stop sleepwalking. Call your friend. Say the unsaid. Laugh at the small things. Shed the weight of others' expectations. Happiness, connection, authenticity, they're all within reach, but only if you dare to grasp them. And so here's my challenge. Imagine your final day. What will you regret? Now go out and do the opposite. Thank you for walking this path with me. If this resonated, share your thoughts, your fears, your plans to live boldly. Like, subscribe, and let's keep exploring what it means to truly live. Until next time, my ever-curious companions.